So the steering column on my 79 Bronco bearing at the joint here is a little sloppy, and it's got some slop in the steering wheel. So I got a spare steering column that I've already taken apart. I was able to kind of use that as a demo to get the bearing out. I'm going to try to hopefully use that bearing out of the old one and put it into this one here. The applications are a little bit different. This one here has got an electric key switch, so I'm basically just salvaging this rod that is out of the other one. Also, I found that they're really hard to find, and the only ones you can find are the square ends, and then you need an adapter to put in, and I just didn't want to mess around too much with that because I'd have to buy a new steering column as well. And I couldn't find the steering columns that had the spline shaft coming out the end, which is my application. So I'm just going to try to take this apart and see if I can salvage this bearing joint here and put it into mine. Then I can just put the whole column and everything right back in. Also, the wiring was a little bit better on the other one, which should be a plug and play as well. But there's a couple screws holding your blinker horn assembly, and that pulls out. The wire harness will have to be taken out at a different time. There's a couple more screws in there, and then there's a couple screws that are holding this casing right here in underneath, and I'm taking those out now. So after taking out these screws up top and then the ones below underneath here, these are the ones that were underneath. They got like a little latch on them. So make sure you take lots of pictures as well taking it out so you can remember how to put it back in. So after I get that out, this here was the outside, of course. The outside, and then this is just the shaft here that slid out. And we're going to try to disassemble this part here to get the joint out. So this is the new wire harness that we're going to put in. You can tell these ones here are in way better shape. This one here's got a bunch of splices and dry spots in it, and so I was just looking it over, and it's identical. So we'll be able to switch that out and hopefully have a horn, because this one here has been cut and this one here is still connected. So we'll see if that works. Also, this universal here in the right there is where you're getting your problem with slop in the steering wheel. That universal is all wore out in there. So we're going to try to press that out and see if we can put the new one in. So taking this universal part here, it's not really, I guess you can call it a universal, but I've never seen one before like this. There's little balls on both ends. And then these pieces here get pinched in the little grooves with a bolt. So I have not had any luck really finding parts for it. And so I think I'm going to try to put a new bolt in it. The one that came out was not very healthy. So I'm going to try to put it back together and try to tighten it down a little bit and see if it'll pinch down onto these balls a little bit and see if that'll take the slack up. And we'll go from there. So it looks like the nut that was, the bolt and nut that were holding the two pieces together on the balls was a little loose, and it was kind of stripped out, so I put a new bolt in. And now I think we have accomplished tightening it up. It doesn't have any slop. It's nice, and it's a little stiff, but I sprayed it all down, and it's fully functional. And the bearings that are on the shaft are seized on, and I am afraid that I'm going to break this taking it off, but the bearings are good, so I'm not going to fool around with it. I was going to try to take it off to be able to get better access to taking this bolt and nut off in here, but I don't think I need to, so I think we accomplished the problem. So I guess that was a learning curve for me. I've never seen a joint like that before, and I didn't really find any research online, or I did find a breakdown diagram of that part, but I just couldn't find where I can order it. So I got looking at it and figured I would try tightening it, and it seemed to work. So one other problem I was having with my steering column was the tilt on it was not staying locked in position. It kept clicking by. So upon researching a little bit about it, I found that this part here is kind of a weak link. That knot is not, but the pin itself. So what happens is the pin holds the jaws in, and what happens is it starts falling out because it gets loose and egg shaped. So in fact, mine was actually halfway out when I took it apart. So what happens is that it's kind of cocks off to the side, and it's not allowing it to grab square on the pin to keep it locked. So they suggested either getting a longer pin and putting some clips on the side so it cannot fall out, but I don't think that I'm going to be able to find a pin like that. And the other options is you can put a small bolt, but these pins are hardened, so you want to probably keep something hardened. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some liquid JB Weld. I'm going to push the pin back in place, and I'm going to kind of coat it over the end of the pinhole, and then on this one here is where the jaw locks into that pin there, and this one here is a little loose too. I can't get it to come out, but it is loose, so I'm just going to put some JB Weld over the ends as well, and that should lock them in. I don't ever anticipate pulling this apart again or needing to fix it. If I do, I'll probably buy a new one. But so I think that's another thing that you can look at your steering column when you're tearing it apart too. Even if the pins haven't pulled out yet, it's a good idea to try to address it since it's apart. So it turned out that the universals were different from the other column that I was going to use, but luckily the one I had was able to be tightened and fix the slop. So this is all back together here. And I did want to clarify that earlier I said that I couldn't find a steering column that had a spline shaft. I was able to find one, but they were $700, and I couldn't justify paying that for a steering column if I could potentially fix this one. So just got to put the wire harness back together and install it, and it should be good to go. Thanks for watching, guys.